It's hard to work with people that don't care about the families as much as you do.
And it becomes more about numbers and statistics than ensuring that a child is safe.
Investigators inside the Department of Children and Families, the state's top child welfare agency, say Florida is putting children at risk.
Over the last 8 months, Contact 5 investigator Sam Smink, in a joint investigation with the Palm Beach Post, spoke to a dozen former and current investigators about what's not happening when it comes to protecting Florida's children.
I don't know how to manage it. It's virtually impossible.
And they did expect people to pretty much work 24/7.
The people that really care about the families are few and far between.
These 3 former child protective investigators are just a few of the dozen we talked with. They all believe the department is setting children and investigators up to fail.
Before you cannot feasibly care for all these many families and children, there's no way.
You know, a lot of times people wouldn't get interviewed. You know, it's a big deal to lie about those things.
Investigators admit to cutting corners.
Sometimes my supervisor would be like, oh, well, just say that you couldn't get in touch with them or nobody was home. So when a kid's not seen and it's documented that they're seen, nobody really knows what's going on with this kid.
That's because they say investigators are handling too many cases at one time. Behind every case is 1, 2, maybe even 10 children or more.
When you have a caseload of 20, 25, 30, 35, you are bound to not just fail, most likely, but your families that you are charged with overseeing and helping are going to fail.
When you get 2 or 3 cases a day, you literally cannot do what you need to do to make sure that you're doing a good job. You can't do it.
I mean, I've had so many families to call me, crying on the phone with me, you know, begging for help. And there are times when my supervisor would be like, well, they can deal with it on their own.
It's only a matter of time before the next tragedy.
Absolutely.
When people are stressed and they're tired, that's when mistakes happen.
Within DCF, those mistakes are called missed opportunities. Phoebe Johnchuk, her father threw her off a bridge.
And I'm angry and I'm frustrated that we can't better protect kids.
Janiyah Thomas went missing for a year before she was found dead. Chance Walsh had a baby wipe stuffed down his throat by his dad, a dad who previously lost custody of 7 kids.
In both these cases, there is no question we had system failures.
Even the recent case of Talia Alman, who basically starved to death. The department released a news statement stating that there were missed opportunities. But again, that's the go-to phrase.
I have trusted Florida.
Nakia Venant.
Wants to care people to care for my baby.
Another missed opportunity. A few of the hundreds of children DCF failed.
Instead, she killed herself on Facebook.
Each time, DCF Secretary Mike Carroll says they'll do better.
Today, we have investigators that have well beyond 20 cases or 30 cases. And it begs the question, are there going to be more missed opportunities? It's so bad at this point that there are investigators that are resigning left and right.
At least 55 DCF investigators in our area have quit in the last 14 months. And when they leave, their cases get put on someone else.
And then the higher-ups from there put more pressure to get cases closed. And that throws us back into that whole cycle again.
We do monitor workload.
DCF Secretary Mike Carroll repeatedly refused to speak on camera, but talked with us by phone.
I understand folks' frustration with workload, but we also monitor because there are some folks who can't manage their workload. And we do see from time to time folks that caseloads reach that high, although that's the aberration, not the norm.
Is this interview your plea for help?
It is, and it's not just mine. What's going to happen, my fear, is that a child is going to die, unfortunately, and somebody's going to scratch their head and say, how could this have happened? It's inevitable. It's inevitable.
In that same phone conversation, Secretary Carroll told me and the Palm Beach Post about a plan started in March that he hopes would help reduce paperwork needed for some cases by 30%. He also set a goal that no CPI have a caseload greater than 25 at any given time. The Secretary provided us with a new statement this afternoon saying in part, quote, "We remain committed to keeping workloads manageable throughout the state to support those doing this important work and the families we serve." Now, we've contacted state lawmakers about this story. We'll keep you updated. There's a lot more information and even more video from this story that can be found on our website, WPTV.com. Sam Smink, WPTV News Channel 5.
Florida Department of Children and Family investigators falsifying records. It's something many current and former workers tell Contact 5 they do just to get the job done.
And Contact 5 and the Palm Beach Post in a joint investigation found high caseloads and high turnover within the department are to blame. Contact 5 investigator Sam Smink spoke to one of the investigators who was caught lying. She joins us now. Sam?
Matthew Wilcox says he was handling 28 cases when he resigned from DCF in 2015. But having 28 cases, according to him, meant having to interview 200 people and be responsible for them all at one time. He says the pressure to meet deadlines got to him. In Wilcox's case, he lied on a report. He was supposed to interview a child within 24 hours of a complaint, but didn't make it to the hospital on time. He never spoke to the child, but on the report said he did. He also backed up a time. Wilcox was arrested and sentenced to probation earlier this year after pleading guilty.
But did I break the rules? Yeah, I broke the rules. Why did I do it? I did it because I wanted to keep my job. It would not surprise me if every person who's worked for DCF at one point or another has changed a time, has backed up a time, has changed a fact.
Wilcox says the department asks for too much documentation when it comes to each case, and it's impossible to have the time to get it all done, something a dozen other investigators told us as well. DCF Secretary Mike Carroll says there is no tolerance for falsifying records inside DCF. A longer version of Wilcox's interview is on our website, WPTV.com. Sam Smink, WPTV News Channel 5.
Contact 5 Palm Beach Post joint investigation into the Department of Children and Families uncovered deep-rooted problems that may be contributing to kids dying while in DCF care. So what now?
DCF Secretary Mike Carroll told Contact 5 that he's putting a plan in place to ensure better care. But is that enough?
Contact 5 investigator Sam Smink brought her investigation straight to the local lawmaker in charge of child welfare. She joins us now live with what you've learned, Sam.
State Representative Gail Harrell of Stewart has served on the committee that oversees DCF for the last 8 years. She told me making DCF better is unfortunately not a quick fix, but a work in progress. It was confessions like this one.
Yeah, I mean, I've had so many families to call me and be like crying on the phone with me, you know, begging for help. And there are times when my supervisor would be like, well, they can deal with it on their own.
And this one.
When you have a caseload of 20, 25, 30, 35, you are bound to not just fail, most likely, but your families that you are charged with overseeing and helping are going to fail.
That led us to Representative Gail Harrell.
Certainly the caseloads that they're talking about seemed very large. This is a high-stress job. This is about as stressful as you can get.
To help alleviate that stress, for the last 5 years, the state legislature has put more money into child welfare.
The legislature's responsibility is to fund and to set policy.
In 2014, they gave millions to the agency to hire 270 additional child protective investigators. But since January, at least 198 workers across the state have quit.
Well, I think that comes down to hiring. And are we getting the right people? And that's part of the problem.
A state Senate bill passed in 2014 set a goal for the agency.
By 2019, if we could have 50% of our CPIs with a social work degree, I think you would see this caseload drop. At least with a social work degree, you know what you're going to get.
I went to the house on Saturday afternoon. Nobody was home.
Finding new child protective investigators is tough. Keeping them even harder. Their starting salary is $35,600 and jumps to $39,000 after a year. Florida is in the lower ranks of the nation regarding starting salary. Is the legislature satisfied with this starting salary?
I think this is where we are now, and we are progressively increasing that.
It's not just the money. It's too many cases and not enough time.
It's virtually impossible.
And they did expect people to pretty much work 24/7.
It would not surprise me if every person who's worked for DCF at one point or another has changed a time, has backed up a time, has changed a fact.
Anyone who misrepresents or lies on a form should be fired.
But many of these investigators are saying it's the pressure from management and supervisors that is causing this.
I say shame on them if they're doing that.
But they're saying that's directive coming from supervisors because you need to close these cases.
No, they need to close cases that it's appropriate to close. I can't speak for the department. I can only speak for what the legislature is doing.
What about these children who did suffer and die on the state's watch? Do you believe the state is serving these at-risk children well?
I think we have done a great job in moving forward. We are a work in progress. We're continuing to work on serving children well. Are we there? No, not at all. Are we working on it? Absolutely.
We also asked Representative Harrell about the safety model workers in Florida use to investigate cases. They say it's requiring them to do too much paperwork. Harrell promised she will ask the Child Welfare Institute at FSU to re-examine the safety model.
Rick Scott wants to increase funding for the Department of Children and Families to hire more investigators. The announcement comes just weeks after a Contact 5 investigation exposed high caseloads and even higher turnover at DCF. Here's Contact 5 investigator Sam Smink. Sam.
Kelly, DCF has a tough time keeping investigators on the payroll. Since Contact 5 aired its original investigation, 27 more investigators statewide have quit. In our story, we revealed that investigators say they can't do their jobs well because they have too many cases at one time. Some even resort to falsifying documents. Governor Scott wants the $10 million to go toward hiring 130 more DCF investigators and abuse hotline workers. His goal is to reduce caseloads and increase retention. But this year alone, 225 investigators and supervisors have quit. Investigators say it's also about money. The starting salary for a CPI is $35,600 and jumps to only $39,000 after 1 year. We asked Governor Scott's office about plans for salary increases. They said, quote, CPIs and Florida abuse hotline counselors received a pay raise this year through the budget signed by Governor Scott in June. They did not comment on plans for raises in the future. When the $10 million proposal was announced, DCF Secretary Mike Carroll explained in part that additional investigators will allow DCF to keep caseloads low so that investigators have the time and resources they need to make the best decisions possible in the interest of the children we serve. As for those high turnover rates, their response to our questions about that are on our website. Reporting in studio, Sam Smink, WPTV News Channel 5.